The Hyborian era. Young Conan thought his life was over after losing his parents and being captured, but the gods foretold that he would wear the crown of Aquilonia. The old blacksmith forges an iron sword before accompanying Conan to the mountainside to tell his son about Crom, their great god, and the secret of steel. The arrival of an enemy army led by the evil wizard Thulsa Doom disrupts life in the village. The raiders slaughter all the villagers and stab Conan's father with a sword right in front of him. The guy's mother hides in the woods with him, but Doom's army finds them. The evil sorcerer approaches the woman with the blacksmith's sword. Conan, along with the rest of the village children, is kidnapped by the villains and led through forests and fields to the location where Thulsa Doom plans to build his mystical city. Young slaves spin a massive wheel in the settlement center. Conan is strapped to it, and he has plenty of time to spin it. 20 years have passed. Conan continues to spin the wheel, but he is no longer a young man, but a mature, strong man. A change occurs in the guy's life one day when the master removes Conan from the wheel and transports him to a neighboring town without explaining anything. The strong man is thrown into the ring and attacked by a fighter with sharpened teeth, whom the warrior defeats. Conan becomes the main mercenary from that day forward, taking part in every fight and defeating strong and brave opponents. When the young man's victories are no longer counted, he is sent to the east to study martial arts with the great masters. In addition, the warrior is taught to read and write in the east. He meets women and grows into a man, despite the fact that he spends his entire life in a cage. Despite his father's words, Conan does not forget them and continues to pray to Crom and respect the power of steel. Years later, after earning the respect of his master, Conan gains his freedom and flees the slave owners. On his way, the lad encounters a pack of wolves and must climb a rocky mountain to escape them. Conan falls into it and ends up in an abandoned dark tomb. The warrior lights a fire and takes a look around. He notices skeletons covered in cobwebs along the walls, and the remains of the king are at the far end of the throne room. Conan notices a sword in the skeleton's hands and carefully takes it out, beating away the rust and dirt to obtain his own weapon. The ancient king's head bows, and the lad interprets it as a sign, cuts the remaining chain and, having dealt with the wolves, proceed. Conan travels for many kilometers until he encounters the first living person, a beautiful woman waiting for him in the doorway of her hut. She invites the visitor in and rests, telling him that the magical forces forewarned her of the arrival of a powerful man a long time ago. Conan is given a ritual dance by the witch, who tells him of a prophecy in which he will become king and defeat the mystical serpent. To do so, he must pay a price and sleep with her. Conan accepts the pleasure, but as soon as the man gets down to business, the beautiful sorceress transforms into a terrible witch, and the warrior is forced to cast her into the fireplace, where she flies out in a ball of fire and disappears into the woods. Conan prepares to continue after resting, but he hears someone pleading for help from a mountain gorge. The barbarian discovers a beggar prisoner who has been sentenced to death for theft. Subotai, the prisoner's name, requests food, but Conan decides to take the lad with him so that he does not have to continue this journey alone. The men gather some game and gather around the fire to get to know each other better. They talk about their gods and even argue a little. The men run through fields, forests, mountains, and rivers for several days before arriving in an unfamiliar town. The travelers stroll through the market, looking at strange animals and trying some foreign food. They continue their journey without knowing where they are going after they have rested. Conan gives the blacksmith his sword to be sharpened in another town. The men rest again, and find an old man who can teach them about the snakes that Conan seeks. According to the old man, it was only a small sect a year ago, but now snake statues have appeared in all the towns, and the army of the serpent leader hunts people at night. Conan demonstrates his strength to Subotai by knocking down a camel, but this attracts too much attention, and the men are forced to flee town in the middle of the night. Valeria, a girl with a sword, meets the men on their way out of town. When she learns that the travelers intend to enter the Serpent Temple, she requests that they include her. The group climbs to the temple's roof and descends inside via thick ropes, suffering from a terrible stench. A ritual begins in the temple at this time, and dozens of white-clad sectarians surround the priest, an accomplice of Thulsa Doom. While Valeria observes the ritual, Conan and Subotai descend to find a massive snake guarding a magical gem known as the Eye of the Snake. Valeria kills one of the girls and, disguised in her costume, watches the ritual as a young beauty emerges in the center of the hall and is sent downstairs to be eaten by the snake. But the snake no longer requires the food, and when Conan notices it about to attack him, he plunges his sword into the giant viper. Subotai assists his friend in slaying the snake, and as the girl falls, her scream echoes from the cellar. Panic breaks out in the temple, but the sectarians are unable to apprehend the thieves, who climb to the roof and jump into the pool before fleeing. The friends go to the tavern to celebrate their victory, and Conan presents Valeria with the most valuable stone, after which the two retire to their room and spend the night together. Conan fashions a pendant from the stone for his friend, which he wears around her neck. Conan feels like a winner. Conan falls asleep at the table, drunk out of his mind, and when King Osric's men arrive at the tavern, Valerie is unable to wake him. The insolence of the strangers delights the old king. He informs them that Thulsa Doom has terrorized the towns for many months, and that Osric's young daughter has also succumbed to the evil wizard's influence and fled her home. The old man lavishes jewels on the thieves and requests that they return the princess and deal with Thulsa Doom. Valeria tries to talk Conan out of his exploits, claiming that Thulsa Doom is too dangerous for the three of them to defeat. Subotai agrees with the girl, but Conan the Barbarian remains silent. Valeria awakens to an empty bed and her pendant beside her. The girl realizes that Conan alone went to the sorcerer to defeat him. Conan sets out on his journey alone once more, this time to Thulsa Doom. For many days, the man walks, asking passers-by for directions. Many ruined cities await him along the way, and the warrior eventually finds the hut of the sorcerer who was once his master. The men talk by the fire all night, reminiscing about the old days, and in the morning, Conan abandons his sword and horse, mounting his camel, and setting off for the sectarian village, pretending to be a traveler in love. Finally, the warrior sees a column of snake worshippers, with the locals chasing them, and the lad joins the others, hoping to get lost in the crowd. One of the priests notices the stranger, and Conan, sensing his curiosity, takes the old man to a secluded location and, after eliminating him, takes his clothes. Conan and the others, disguised as local sorcerers, make their way upstairs to Thulsa Doom's palace. The princess eventually appears on the steps, followed by the warrior and Doom himself. Conan and his companions pretend to worship the sorcerer, but he is attacked by his guards, who recognize the stranger as an infidel. Because there are too many of them, Conan is unable to flee and is carried to the execution site by sectarians. The warrior is subjected to harsh trials before being visited by Thulsa Doom himself, who demands that the lad reveal the location of the Serpent's Eye. Conan reminds Doom of what he did to his family, but Doom believes it was a youthful mistake and that he spared no one in his quest for the secret of steel, so there is no tragedy in what happened. Conan is sentenced to the Tree of Misery as punishment. Looking around at the circling vultures, the warrior realizes his end has arrived and he will never be able to escape. But with the sunrise comes salvation. Subotai appears on the horizon, having finally come to his best friend's aid. Valeria comes after Subotai. Conan's companions drag him to the sorcerer's hut and request that he heal the warrior, but the shaman warns them that the price will be high. For several days, the sorcerer performs rituals, painting various patterns on the traveler's body. Conan is lucky and comes to his senses thanks to the persistence of his beloved and best friend, who drives away the spirits of death on the decisive night. Conan resumes his training, vowing to return to the Temple of Doom and avenge him. This time, the warrior's friends gather, and the old man instructs them on how to breach the mountain where Thulsa Doom resides. Subotai asks Conan to save his vengeance for another time and, in the meantime, kidnap the princess and flee, but the guy's face shows that he does not agree. The shaman blesses the guests before they depart. Set up near the cliff's entrance, the company puts on magical makeup and sneaks inside through the kitchen, where they are just now preparing a decoction from the kidnapped. Once inside the main hall, the visitors hide behind a fence to watch the ceremony, which is attended by dozens of sectarians. They crawl across the floor, playing adult games on Thulsa Doom, while the princess sits at the sorcerer's feet, having the upper hand. Suddenly, Doom's jaw moves forward and his hands disappear beneath his robe. After a few minutes, the sorcerer transforms into a massive snake and falls to the ground. Meanwhile, Valeria and Subotai dispatch the guards, and Conan enters the hall and disperses the crowd in an attempt to reach the founder himself. Valeria seizes the princess and the company flees, halting the pursuit with a cauldron of brew from the kidnap. They eventually destroy the castle, leaving it in ruins. The warriors are unable to capture the sorcerer and decide to depart in order to return later. Despite the presence of guards in the corridors, the company exits the cave and mounts their horses to ride to Osric's kingdom. Doom has no intention of apprehending the fugitives. Instead, he fashions an arrow out of one of his snakes and fires it at the travelers. Valeria becomes ill as soon as the arrow strikes her. She realizes that this is it, and she asks Conan to hug and kiss her one last time. The girl dies in her lover's arms, fueling his desire for vengeance even more. Valeria is buried in an abandoned city according to barbarian customs. Conan prepares a trap for the sorcerer who will come for the abducted princess while wearing her friend's talisman around her neck. Finally, he and Subotai construct a fence of stakes and set traps. The old shaman joins his friends and acquires his armor and swords. Meanwhile, the princess is chained to a rock on the hill, acting as bait. Finally, Doom's army appears, and the company is fully prepared to meet him. Conan even remembers praying to Crom, to whom he hasn't prayed in years. 3 warriors fight an entire army, and they manage to defeat everyone except Thulsa Doom himself. The sorcerer remains on the sidelines, watching the battle. Recognizing his defeat, the chief priest decides to eliminate the princess so that she does not fall into the hands of his enemies. Subotai manages to shield the girl after discovering the villain's plan, and Doom walks away empty-handed. Conan discovers the hilt of his father's sword after defeating one of Doom's mercenaries, and in this he sees a sign from Crom, who helped him. Thulsa Doom performs another ritual at night, gathering thousands of his followers with torches at the front stairs. Conan also arrives at the gathering, and the princess leads him safely away, allowing him to approach the sorcerer from behind. Doom attempts to hypnotize Conan by referring to him as his son, but the man is immune to the sorcerer's charms and takes his head as a trophy, displaying it to the assembled crowd and ordering everyone to disperse. Conan sits on the steps after freeing the people. When the princess arrives, the lad sets fire to the snake's den and departs to take her home and achieve new feats.